Hello, everyone. This is Dave Warner with Small Town Life, part of the Studio 25 podcast network. And today we have Dr. Terri Grates Day in here, who is the president of Herkimer College, the new president, 3 weeks worth. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So you haven't been there that long, and I usually start with this kind of, where did you grow up? Where are you from kind of thing, so people know that.
Sure. So when I was first born, we lived in Frankfort. So my dad was from Frankfort. My mom was from Ilion. A couple years in, we moved to Herkimer. So I did all of my elementary schooling, high school, proud graduate of Herkimer High School, graduated from Herkimer County Community College, and then went on to SUNY Tech, which is now SUNY Poly. But I have a hard time saying that.
All the old stuffs.
Yes.
Do you have the same problem with Herkimer College versus Herkimer County Community College?
We are Herkimer County Community College. We are a county college and we are a community college. And so I prefer to call it HCCC.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So talk to me about growing up. In other words, what was the Valley like then? Mm-hmm. What was your education like, your upbringing?
Sure. So I come from, working poor. My parents, my dad was a manager of Burger King, and that was after many years, right?
The Burger King in Herkimer?
Burger King in Herkimer.
Awesome.
And so he, started out early in his career. He worked for the Arms. He worked for Bergamo East doing bicycle spokes. He did a variety of different things and then got into Burger King and worked his way up to manager. My mother worked for Salata Tea right here in Little Falls for years until they sold to the German company that bought it out, and that laid everyone off. So both my grandfathers worked for Remington Arms. So I am a very manufacturing background. I have a shirt that says "Raised on Remington."
Oh wow!
And so the working poor. My parents weren't on day shift until I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
So it was second and third shifts. I'm the oldest of three. So it was helping my brothers, get their lunch made every morning.
So kind of a mom role, too.
Yeah, exactly. And so grew up in that fashion. The Valley has changed quite a bit, right? We've seen some better days. But on the other hand, we have some great folks like the Herkimer County IDA doing all they can to bring economic growth back to Herkimer County.
We knew you were from here when you said the Arm.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Very sad to see it go, but very happy that someone has purchased it and there's going to breathe some new life into it.
Let's hope so.
Mm-hmm.
So what about, aspirations? You were the first one from your family to go to college, right?
I was.
So was that something on your radar early on when you were young, or?
No, not at all. My parents had no inclination that I would even go to college, right?
They think you're going to be at the Arm working.
I coming from a traditional family, my parents were kind of like, well, if you are going to go to college, it needs to be something. You have to be a teacher, a nurse, something in a traditional female role. And when I didn't want to do any of that, it was, well, I don't know. I don't know what your path forward is. And so I can really relate to the students who, what is a financial aid form? How do I choose a major? What if I choose wrong? All of the things
that
you worry about. And back then, college was more, if you were an undecided student, it was okay, right? Like I didn't declare a major until I was a senior in college. And then I took 30 semester credit hours in that discipline, sociology.
Oh, wow.
Because I just didn't know. And I had no one to advise me. The world's a little different now. Like at Herkimer County Community College, we don't even have an undecided major. So, students are kind of forced into choosing earlier on.
Is that good or bad, do you think, now that you've seen both sides of it?
I think it can be beneficial in that the exploration, right? If we have a career counseling center, right? And so you can come take an assessment. They can help guide you into a degree. If you want to be a transfer student, that you want to go on to a 4-year, there's no rush, right? Just go into general studies, get your core curriculum out of the way, and then decide. For me, and I don't know who advised me back then to do that, But that was my saving grace at the end, right? Because I was truly able in the last year just to take the last courses in the discipline.
So you took like general studies, just
Yep.
kind of, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So would that be the undecided of today? They would
Correct.
do general studies? Okay, all right.
Yep. So, you can be in it and, like I said, get your core courses out and kind of feel where you want to go. Now, if you want to do like an associate applied science and go right into the workforce, you don't have that luxury. So if you know you want to do, say, physical therapy assistant,
Right.
well, then okay, then that's you have to declare your major. But the folks that are going to transfer, they have a little bit more leeway time-wise.
Okay, all right. So growing up, did you didn't decide till you were a senior in college, but was being head of a college or being a teacher, was that kind of something you thought about, or did you think of other things?
Well, so it's interesting. I thought of many things. When I was very young, I thought I'm just going to go work in the factory, just like everyone else. I mean,
Right.
It's just the thing that we do here. But I also knew I wanted to travel and explore and do things like that. So what could I do, degree-wise for that? And I just really had no sense of, I had some great professors at SUNY Tech who, back in the early 90s, we were in the middle of a recession, right? A pretty bad recession in upstate New York. I had friends that had packaging engineer degrees that were working at Friendly's. And so, but I had some really good sociology professors that said, hey, this is what you could do with this degree. You could go into criminology. You could go, and I was doing a lot of social justice work then. So I was working for Rape Crisis Herkimer County. I worked for the Boys and Girls Club of Utica, things like that. And so it was, you can go that route, or you could go into counseling. Back then it wasn't such a stringent thing where you had to have your master's degree and, licensure and all of that. And so I think it's one of the things that I always advise students is never pass on an opportunity. Even if you think it doesn't apply to you, if it's free, do it.
Yeah.
Because you never know where that will lead, right?
I was listening to you. We're going to talk about it in a bit, but you did pick up a little Texas twang in there.
I've heard that.
Well, I had 37 years in Texas, so I recognized it all of a sudden. I was like, she's got some of that North Texas twang in there. So anyway, kind of you got your degree. Mm-hmm. What happened next?
I married into the military.
Really?
That's what took me away from the Mohawk Valley. And so when I think back on it, it was an opportune time anyways. Like I said, we were in recession, so many layoffs everywhere. What a new student, come out doing. And I have great respect for people, my classmates that did stay locally and were able to figure it out. But no, that led to 15 years of traveling around to different places, living overseas. Right after I graduated from SUNY Tech, shortly after that, I got a job as a civilian for the Army as a director of school age services, so providing before and after care for military kids. And so did that for about 3 years. And then when we came back stateside is when I went into higher education.
Talk about the difference maybe between military students and civilian students and the issues. There are some different issues there that you would have had to deal with.
There is. I mean, especially when you're talking about younger. These were 6 to 12, age 6 to 12. And so this was a time when we were, BRAC was going, or S4 with Bosnia was going on at that time. The Yemen ship explosion was that time, and we had folks whose parents were on that ship. So, I mean, there was a lot of learning experiences, I was looking after 6 sites at the age of 25.
Ooh.
Millions of dollars in budget, talk about the experience that I was able to get that where, stateside I probably never would. When you're overseas, it's a little bit different because they don't have as many folks that are qualified to do these roles or jobs or that would even step up and take them, right? And so I think it was a wonderful experience for me.
I'm telling you, the Texas accent is coming out more. Either I'm making that happen or that's part of you.
Maybe your ears are hearing it.
I don't know. I just like so, how did you come upon hearing about the Herkimer job? I mean, if you're all around and doing this.
Yeah, and so I was living in Nashville from 2020 on, right in the peak of COVID is when we arrived in Nashville.
Good timing.
Yeah, and so I had heard about the opening when they first announced it. I believe it was in 2023. And so, I stay very connected to the Mohawk Valley. I mean, I still have family here. I still have friends. When the OD and the Herkimer Telegram were still out, I was reading them all the time. I even watched the Village of Herkimer meetings online.
Oh, geez. That's a little bit, connected, right?
Yeah, that's connected. Very connected. And so, people would say to me, hey, the job's open. Are you going to apply? And at that time, I was like, no, I don't think I'm ready. And then
why'd you think that? You needed more experience or?
Well, I was at an institution that had some systemic problems, and I did not want to leave midstream. I wanted them to be in a good place where they could thrive. And so at that time, it just wasn't the right timing. And if you were to ask them when I left now, that's not the right timing, right?
Yeah, they would say, no, why did she go?
Yeah, a lot of gnashing and tears when I left. But when I heard about it the second time, the search firm contacted me and said, hometown girl, you've got the experience. I think you have what we're looking for. Would you consider applying? My initial thing was no.
Really?
Because I was like, I'm happy where I am. I'm still in the middle of this, transition that I need to get.
And Nashville is a tough place to leave.
Yes. And still in the middle of this transition where I need to get these folks through this. And it was my husband that said, you need to think seriously about this the second time, because if they hire right, you won't have another opportunity in your career. This may be the last time that this is available. And it's always been out there for me. My dad had always said, you're going to be president of Harvard on the Hill. He just felt very strongly about that, particularly, as I advanced in higher education. No pressure ever to come back. He got sick in 2017. That was when, well, do you think, right? And yeah, Dad, I might consider it, but it has to be the right role. So when my husband said, consider it, you need to seriously think about this or this opportunity may pass.
Right, because typically it's a long-term job, right?
Exactly. I mean, if they hire right, it's a long-term job,
right.
Yep. And so I says, well, how about this? I'll just apply. It doesn't hurt, right? I'll throw my name in the hat. And so I did that, not expecting to get a call. You never know what your competition's going to be in these searches. And so the search firm contacted me and said, hey, we'd like to offer you a first interview. And so, did the first interview, and I was like, oh, that was a good experience.
When was that?
That was in April.
Okay.
Wish the person well, whoever's gonna, do it. And then I got the second call back and said, we'd like you to come on campus. You're one of 5 finalists. And so I was like, okay, well, this is real. And so,
1 of 5, not bad odds,
one
right?
1 of 5, and then 1 dropped out. So then it ended up being 1 of 4. And so I says, well, okay. And it's funny because I said, when you see it on the WKTV news and I'm in the middle of the 5 and I'm like the rose among the thorns, And so, it was just a comical. And when they released, if you've never done this type of search, you don't know what to prepare for, right?
Right.
And
as far as the questions or the
what's going to happen when they release the names of who the finalists are and all that. And so the search firm, they prepare you for that, but no one could prepare a hometown girl, right? I mean, I was getting emails at Vol State. I was getting, people that had my cell phone numbers, people that had my cell phone numbers that say, hey, this person wants to contact you. Can I give them your number? I mean, the outpouring was just incredible. Wow. So I wasn't prepared from that. I've been gone 30, years. My dad passed in 2021. And so he was my key connection, to the Valley. And so it was just overwhelming at the interview part. And so I came, did the interview. It's literally almost a 12-hour interview. I mean, you go from 8 to 8 to 8.
Wow.
With different groups.
Interview or interrogation?
Both. Some is very much an interrogation. Some is just a friendly sparring.
Yeah.
And so I left, went back to Tennessee.
Sounds like a deposition.
Yeah,
I'm putting it into the deposition category.
Went back to Tennessee, and I said, okay, and I said, I'll just do my best at every stage, every juncture. And, so then, time goes by and, SUNY's involved. And so you have to be confirmed through them and everything is top secret. You can't even say that you're, that you've made it to the next step and everything. So it's a very unique process.
Didn't they put out a press release about the 4 finalists?
Yeah, they do. And
right.
the 4 finalists, and then they narrow it down to 3. But then you don't know From there,
okay.
from the time they do the 4 finalists until they announce who the final person is, you don't really know who's still left in the pack. And so I just kept doing, what I do and, kept making it, to the next step. And then when the board meets to decide the final candidate, and the search firm called me from that board meeting. If they offer it to you, are you going to take it? And I, was like, this is real now.
Is that like getting the Heisman call?
Yeah. This is like real now. Because up to that point, you just don't know. And so great if you do, great if you don't. I don't really get invested in these things because, what is the saying that expectation is the root of all heartache? Mm-hmm. So, I don't really get involved in those sorts of things. Let my mind go there. And so I accepted the role. And, well, when can you be here? Could you be here before the fall semester starts?
So the search firm was in the room, or were
yes.
they? Okay,
the search
really?
firm is through the whole process. The search firm, the owner of the search firm company, and so when they deliberate the candidates, I don't know exactly because I wasn't in the room, but I imagine that she compiles kind of like a profile of each candidate, and here's probably the strengths, here's the their weaknesses, and then the board deliberates. And then the board chooses, who the last standing person is going to be.
So it was a search firm person who you already had a relationship with.
Yes.
I was thinking it would be like a cold call, like somebody saying, "Hey, I'm so and so from the board, and we picked you."
No. And I had talked to Dan Reardon several times from the April into the June, and then he's been great because he has taken on the chair.
I know Dan.
Yeah. Everybody knows Dan.
Everybody knows Dan.
Yep. And so he has taken on the chair of the board position, and so he's learning along with me, right? I mean, he's served on the board a while, but there are just a lot of things that you're not in the weeds about.
Right.
And so he's been great. It's a lot to get a president up to speed. Even if they're not local, from here, I can only imagine what it would be like for somebody who came from the outside, because politically, just all the things that you would have to know besides just what's going on with Herkimer.
But even though you had family here and connected here and went there, you'd been gone 30 years. That's everything changes in 30 years. Mm-hmm. So you were coming in pretty cold. Mm-hmm. So they were like, could you be here for the fall? What was that like? What did you have to go through to make that happen?
Well, this whole process is we just built a house last year.
Oh, in Nashville?
Yeah.
Oh, my
outside
God.
Nashville. And so, that weighed heavily into the discussion. And, gratefully, my husband is, probably my biggest fan, and you could do this. He's always said, you're destined, you were designed to be a president. That's, he's always said that. And so.
Where is he from?
Texas.
Okay, all right. So he wasn't familiar with the Valley and Herkimer, other
he's
than
been
visits.
here, right? Yeah, no,
that's not
no,
kind of
not
like
at
me.
all. Yeah, no.
I'm not from here. Yeah, but
not at all. So he is learning. He is very comical about the whole thing, in that he's always said, I've had many years of you talking very fast and my ears having to decipher that, and now he says my ears just can't keep up. Because everyone here, talks relatively fast. So.
A little slower in Texas.
Yes.
Talk with a little bit of a drawl.
Yes. He very much has that.
Oh, that's great. And so do you.
Yep. Not as bad as him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd like to hear that. So you got the call. You made the decision to come up here. I guess you had to sell the house and everything else like that, make a fast transition. Mm-hmm. And so now you've been here 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, is it like drinking out of a fire hose or?
It's not.
Really?
It's, Dan prepared me well. We probably talk 3 or 4 times a week, about what's going on. I met with all of the executive cabinet members throughout the summer, so that I could be up to speed, day one coming in. And so for me, the biggest concern for me was, I feel like I fit in the Valley, not at the college. I didn't worry about that. It was, you've been gone 30 years. The Valley's changed, and it's comical because at my previous institution, everyone kept saying, your reliable image is not the same. 30 years have gone by, the names aren't going to be, and I'm like, no, the names are still here. They're all still here. I feel like I haven't skipped a beat.
Really?
Yep. So many people. I mean, when I got the job, that day I had to call our IT person and say, I need an email right now, because so many people were contacting me from the Valley at Vol State.
Wow.
And I said, I have to keep them separate.
Yeah.
And so it was just phenomenal. It's been a phenomenal transition for me.
So I know you've only been here a short time, but you said you've talked to everybody. I mean, what were the issues that popped out to you that you felt like I've got to deal with these first?
Yep. Well, they've been without a permanent president for over 2 years. And so, as much as they try to hold it together, it's, you've missed something, right? I will say processes just, antiquated, right? I mean, there's a lot of manual processes that we need to automate, things like that. Enrollment's been on a 10-year plus decline, right? And so this is the first semester where they rose a couple percent from last year, but we're up about 15% for this fall compared to last fall.
And that's all due to you, right?
No, not due to me. No, not at all.
Come on.
They realized the importance of getting back into the community. So for, quite a while, there was no players at the tables of these meetings in the high schools. If you're not present,
out of sight, out of mind.
Yes, exactly. And so, they've done a pivot in the past year just with that realization, partnering. That's what a community college is about, right? Years ago when everybody wanted to take the community out of the community college, I get their point, right? People want you to think back then, community colleges weren't having their heyday.
Low level,
right.
kind of, and
they're not the same as a 4-year, but they are. I mean, as far as your basic courses and, even your if you're doing an AAS or anything, I mean, we have quality education. We have excellent faculty and staff. And I keep saying Herkimer County Community College needs to not be the best kept secret, y'all. Y'all.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So any other issues other than enrollment? Anything else jump out at you? I mean, you're in the middle of a capital campaign.
We're in the middle of a capital campaign, so that's great. I mean, we've finished half the parking lot. We've had to close the hill, so Lou Ambers is closed at the bottom of the hill. We're taking Johnson up the back way. That should be finished within a couple of weeks. New baseball field, new softball field. So a very large capital campaign. I'll say, what we really need to do is align our programs with the workforce in the region. So, I mean, that is something that has been slow to happen at the college. The college has mainly been seen as a transfer institution, right? But, career and technical started to pivot 10 or 12 years ago. And so we really need to invest in new programs.
And now it's critical. Mm-hmm. I mean, everywhere you go, everybody talks about the lack of a skilled workforce.
Yep.
So how are you going to add programs? How are you going to deal with that?
So we need to do an assessment of our current inventory, look at low producing programs, programs that are just not well enrolled or not well, the student makes it to graduation, right? So some of those are the low hanging fruit. We don't have a facility that's really made for career and technical education, so I need to be out there looking and seeing, if we want an HVAC program or a biomedical repair program or something like that, it needs to be more of an industrial type setting. I think, we need to beef up on the partnerships, and, I've already begun that, with a tour with community members and doing the media circuits and, stuff like that. But we could have much stronger relationships with BOCES, with all of our high schools within our service area. We have to have a workforce unit. So right now, several years ago, that, as budgets decreased, some of those things are the things that came off the table, right? So we used to have a workforce unit. We don't have that anymore. I have to have somebody out there that's working with business and industry for short-term credentials, creating short-term training, or whatever it is that the business and industry in our region needs. And that's the best part about a community college, is partnering to meet the needs so that we keep our talent locally, right? I don't know that I would have ever left the Mohawk Valley had we not been in a recession.
Right.
That wasn't I wasn't one of those ones that I got to get out, tomorrow. But it happens. But if a student wants to stay here, then Herkimer wants to help them, define their goal and, meet their goal. If they want to stay in Mohawk Valley, I want them to stay in the Mohawk Valley.
Well, it's two-handed. We give them the education, but we don't want to give them the education to leave.
Yes.
We need to, hand in hand, create the jobs for them here so they stay.
Correct.
Because most of them do want to stay
Yes.
if they're from here. They don't want to go off.
Yes.
Very few are like, no, I got to leave this place because I hate it. You don't hear that a lot here. So I'm not going to make you wait 5 years, but 5 years from now, if you're in here, sitting in here, what are you going to tell me about how you've done?
Well, I'm going to think that we've excelled, but I'm definitely a competitive person. And so, if you're not first, you're last. So I want to transform Herkimer, and have it be the go-to education provider in this area. And I think we can do it. It's just going to take time, effort, a little cash.
It always comes down to the cash,
Yes,
doesn't it?
yes.
You a good fundraiser?
Well, I don't know. I haven't done a whole lot of it, to be honest. But we're going to give it a whirl.
All right.
Right. We've got a foundation. We've got folks. Our CFO is good at fundraising. And so, we'll put a team together and do our best effort.
You have people for that now.
Yeah. Well, no, me too. I'm going to be out there, shaking the trees too. So.
Did I miss anything you wanted to cover?
Just that it's good to be home.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. And
Yes,
I love
thank you.
hearing the accent. Makes me feel like I'm at home. All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time on Small Town Life.